Good day. In September of 2020, Azerbaijan launched a military campaign against the enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. That enclave had been in the hands of Armenia because they had a lot of ethnic Armenians living there, but it was recognized internationally as Azerbaijani territory. They had fought a war over that enclave, and Armenia won the first war and had maintained military presence in that region for quite a while. But in that blistering attack, not seen, nobody planned, nobody knew about it. Azerbaijan launched this attack, and in 44 days, they won back their territory in a war that is known as the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War. Azerbaijan's victory was decisive, and it was helped by no means by one technology, superior technology, mainly by a drone, a Turkish drone called the TB Bayraktar drone. Bayraktar drone was introduced to the world. It helped in destroying quite a lot of Russian property, Soviet military hardware that was mainly the mainstay of the Armenian military then. In fact, Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan, did say that a very cheap drone system like that helped them in destroying quite over $5 billion worth of Armenian military hardware. That was how the world got introduced to the Bayraktar drones, TB2 drones. And in February of 2022, Russia launched a special military operation against Ukraine. There was a large column of tanks that penetrated Ukraine from Belarus and Sumy regions. And while negotiations were going on, they were lined up on a highway leading to Kiev. A lot of them eventually were destroyed, picked up by the same TB2 Bayraktar drones. Those same drones were used against the Russian state very effectively, and they've been a major contributor to the successes that Ukraine has been enjoying in recent times in this war. It now emerged that because of those successes, Ukraine has gone ahead, not only ordered the drones, they also went ahead to try and ask for local production of those drones in a factory close to Kiev there. And today, in the blitz of the attack by Russia through using 600 drones and several hypersonic missiles and cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, one of the targets was the Bayraktar factory in Kiev. It was destroyed. That is one of the news that we found out. The Bayraktar family is quite close to Turkish President Edoghan. They have given Turkey a big profile, and the chief technology officer of Bayraktar is the son-in-law of Turkish President Edoghan. He married his last daughter. His name is Seljuk. And he is the one who brought the dream, and the dream that has become a pride of Turkey. And now this company is solely responsible for the sale of drone and the growing military export market that Turkey now finds itself in. In fact, Turkey is among the top 10 exporter of military hardware due to the fact that their drones are now successful, sold across 36 countries, and that company now has a revenue of something close to $2 billion yearly. Good day. Welcome to my channel, Ebima Amongo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I expressed in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Today, it emerged that one of the military targets that was blown up in Ukraine on the 28th and the night of the 28th of August was a factory being built by Bayraktar. Bayraktar has this factory being built following a 2023 and 2024 agreement between the Ukrainian government and the company. This company has shown exceptional skills. They now have a suite of drones, the TB2, the TB3, the Khinzzal, and these drones are sought after all over the world now. But today, their factory that they have been building for with several millions was attacked in Kiev. This will be the fourth time that this factory will be attacked. Russia just doesn't want this factory to come up. Russia has stepped up attack on foreign investments that help the military industrial complex of Ukraine. Last week, they bombed an American company that produces electronic components for these drones. And today they bombed this Bayraktar factory that is being built. This is the fourth time, like I said, and this time around, the Russians used two Khinzzal hypersonic missiles and made sure that the factory was destroyed comprehensively. Bayraktar is now the pride of Turkey. This particular drone system has helped Turkey to intervene in places, project power more than they could in a long time. They are able to intervene in many theaters now, particularly those theaters where they have specific interests, like in Libya, where they support the national government of Libya and hold off the attack of General Haftar, and also in Syria, where they've used it very effectively against the Kurds. This has brought them into conflict with the American government and also the Syrian government then of Assad before it was overthrown. It's very interesting relationship between Assad and President Edoghan and Russia. Russia, in making this attack directly, is striking at one of Turkey's greatest assets. It is a statement to Turkey that your meddling in the Ukrainian war is being noticed and we'll do something about it. In this picture here, we can see President Zelensky and one of the founders, one of the co-owners of Bayraktar, the elder brother of the pair. His name is Haluk, and he's the one who handles business. He was given an award because of the achievements of his company in Russia. This year is a TB2. These drone systems have been very effective. Sort of. This year is Selçuk. He is the chief technology officer. He owns 52% of the company. He trained in America. He learned drone technology in America, in Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And he always told the people of Turkey that he could do this. He could build a drone. And he built this drone, and this drone has changed the way Turkey is perceived now. President Edoghan and President Putin have had a testing relationship in the course of this special military operation. But yet, Turkey is the one country that has broken from NATO and has supported Russia. Particularly, they did not agree to effect most of the sanctions that was placed on Russia, and they also have continued to buy Russian gas, oil and gas, through the Turk Stream pipeline. They get oil and gas, and they forward oil and gas onward to Hungary, Slovakia, Greece, and countries in the central and southeastern part of Europe. Those countries that still value the benefit of Russian gas. Russia and Turkey, though, and Putin and Erdogan particularly, have had swings in their relationship. In 2015, because of while Turkey was going after the rebels in the Kurds in Syria, Russia was supporting Assad, and that infringement into the territorial sovereignty of Syria was challenged. Russia was giving protection to the Assad government, but Erdogan's troops shot down a Russian plane, an Su plane, and that created a big conflict between them. Russia banned agricultural products coming in from Turkey. Turkey exports a lot of agricultural products into Russia, and they also stopped a big flow of their tourists. Russia contributes over $4 million tourist visitors to Turkey. They are very big in the Turkish scene there. If you go to Istanbul, you will meet a lot of Russian-speaking people from Russia. They visit Turkey in large numbers. They love Turkey. They love Istanbul, and they love to shop. They are very big shoppers in Istanbul there. So when President Putin stopped that, it affected the Turkish economy. But Putin, despite all that, did something very remarkable for Erdogan in 2016. In 2016, Erdogan, there was a coup against Erdogan, and the Russian intelligence intercepted the message of that was being sent about that coup. Obviously, they were planning to capture Edoghan in his resort where he was having his holiday. And the Russians, it is even said that it was Putin who called Edoghan specifically and told him that the coup was being planned against him and that people were coming to arrest him in his resort there. And he escaped. He escaped 30 minutes before the arrival with helicopters, gunships to come and destroy him, possibly kill him or arrest him. So he was very grateful to Putin for that. And for that, that relationship has been there. Even though they've had conflict here and there and they've had issues here and there, Erdogan has been having a dance where he has to balance his interests with NATO, with that of his interests, with the fact that Russia is a big economic supporter of the Turkish state and Erdogan. They tolerate each other. That is just how I will put it. The relationship between Turkey and Russia is a very long historical one. In one video, I put out how the Khanate of Crimea, then under the protection of the Ottoman Empire, used to attack provinces now known as Ukraine and all in that Eastern European countries and southern part of Russia. And for that, Catherine the Great launched a campaign against the Khanate of Crimea and seized Crimea from the Ottomans' protection then. That was how Crimea transferred into being part of the Russian Empire. But during the Soviet times, it became even more testing for the Turks this time around because having steamrolled the Germans and won large parts of the territories of Eastern Europe, pushed the Germans back to Berlin and frightened the Westerners, the Western coalition then of America and Britain and France that they were going to overrun the whole of Germany. Turkey also got under the heat put to them by Joseph Stalin. And Joseph Stalin made it so hot for them because he wanted territories. He was claiming territories within the Turkish country, and he was also claiming rights within the Bosphorus and on the Black Sea. For that reason, there was expedited entry into NATO by Turkey. Turkey applied to join NATO, and Turkey was one of the first countries in 1952 to be accepted into NATO in its first wave of expansion. This wave of expansion that Ukraine is now wanting to be a member of NATO had started long ago, long ago. So in joining the NATO, Turkey protected itself from Soviet Union. But something very serious happened. Turkey in 1961 or thereabout, in the early 60s, late 50s, not too long after they joined NATO, Americans placed some nuclear-capable missiles. I think they were the Jupiter missiles in Turkey, and those missiles had a range of 1,500 kilometers, and it was very possible that they could strike Moscow. Soviet Union wouldn't have any of it. Khrushchev planned his own strategy and placed some missiles also, Soviet missiles in Cuba, and that led to the Cuba crisis, missile crisis that almost led to a world war where each country would have used nuclear weapons. And since then, eventually the Russians took away their missiles from Cuba, and they extracted a pledge from America not to invade Cuba. But what America had done to Cuba in these 60 years is that they've sanctioned them, put an economic embargo on them, and left Cuba frozen in the 1950s. Cuba is not a place most Cubans want to live anymore, and they have left. So Erdogan is a special case. This factory here now that is supporting Ukraine, is supporting Ukraine very actively on this front, but in the same time, is facilitating trade and expanding trade with Russia. The Russians tolerate him for that because Istanbul is a gateway for Russian trade, Russian currency transactions, they facilitate a lot of trade for Russia in Istanbul and within the Turkish state. Turkey has just refused to follow the norm of the European Union and the norm of NATO in this regard. And for that reason, it has stood its ground against any kind of all the kind of rhetorics and bullying of the European Union. It helped, though, that since they started accession talks into the European Union over 30, 40 years ago, European Union had been afraid of taking in a huge Muslim country with over 80 million Muslims. That is their excuse. And they've slow walked Turkey, found every means to stop Turkey from getting into the European Union. While they are trying to accelerate entry into the European Union for Ukraine, they stopped Turkey. So Erdogan is not a fan of the EU. And he has always used refugee problems of Syria, problems created by the Obama bombing of Syria, large refugee flows towards Europe. He now uses it as a blackmail weapon against the EU because they had to make a deal with him, settle with him, and then with that deal and settlement, he now kept within the Turkish state almost 1 million to 3 million Syrians, so that he gets funding from the EU so that it will stop the flow of Syrian migrants into Europe. That flow of Syrian migrants was what ultimately changed the nature and color of the democracies in Europe, because with it, a lot of people started to complain about the refugees that came into Europe from Syria being different from them, and that ultimately led to the pressure that led to the fall of Angela Merkel as a leader, and also the rise of opposition elements like AfD, and even in Italy, in Germany, and in France. There was one particular racial and bad bombing carried out by one ultra-nationalist in Norway. It was against this same entry of Muslims then into Norway. He attacked a youth center, but he was bringing attention to the migration crisis then. That migration crisis that is now overwhelming Europe. So Turkey has had a long relationship with Putin. Edoghan and Putin know themselves. They tolerate each other. But this attack on Bayraktar is a clear statement, very clear by Putin, that the line stops here. He drew a line. He says, you can do anything. We know that we are mutually beneficial to each other, especially as Turkey leans on Russia a lot for a lot of diplomatic cover in certain regards. He knew that he had to draw a line in this one, and this bombing of the Bayraktar factory is a clear indication of that fact. Turkey is handling too many projects now. They have a project going on in Syria. They have a project going on in Azerbaijan. They now are in direct conflict with Russia, with Israel, haven't successfully collectively destroyed the Assad government. They are now fighting over territory and trying to muzzle their way in divvying up and sharing the spoils of the Russian state using Sarah, the HTS leader, who is now the head of Syria. So this was a clear statement today. Turkey was receiving its own share of Russian anger today. Today already we know that the EU building and the British Council building was also damaged. It has emerged further now that it was mainly an explosion close by that damaged them. It wasn't particular as if they were directly targeted, but it shows a strategy of the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians put these facilities very close to the diplomatic quarters like that, military batteries close to hospitals, close to population centers, and this brings the kind of opprobrium, the kind of problems for the Russians anytime that they go after them, and it inadvertently affects a lot of people. Today, it was announced that over 23 people have died in this last raid of the Russians. But we all know that to a large extent, it's the falling air defense systems of the Ukrainians. The Russians have insisted and have shown repeatedly that they don't attack civilians. Whether that is true or not, I am not a Ukrainian, so I won't know. But in the crossfire, people do get hurt and people do get killed. And today, 23 people were victims of the goings on in Kiev. President Trump was asked about the heavy bombing that Ukraine suffered, and he said he's not particularly happy about it, but what will he do? Those two countries don't like each other. He is getting to appreciate the hatred driving the war, that it is not easy to extricate it, especially as the Europeans have tied themselves to supporting the Ukrainians and using the Ukrainians as their hand in lobbing drones. The strategy now is to intensify the production of drones because they've become very effective. Today, we got to find out that Russia too has also stepped up a drone game. We already know that in the domain of FBP drones, they control the war theater now. Their drones are now overwhelming drones operators in Pokrovsk, in Konstantinovka, in Sloviansk, and all the battle cities that are currently engulfed in battle. They are now showing superior competence and superior delivery systems for their FBP drones and overwhelming the drone teams of Ukraine, taking them out, blowing them up. But today we also found out that they have also stepped up their game and have also had their own version of naval drone, and they used it in blowing up the only functioning ship that Ukraine has in its navy. Ukraine's navy now is under the Black Sea. They don't have any other thing again. Ukraine has been very effective in using these drones, the naval drones. They've driven off the Russians to the sea absorb very far away. The Russians are dejected, standing like some dejected chicken far away from where they would stay out of the harm's way. Because the drones and the technology that is driving the drones from the naval drones put by Ukraine is a joint effort of the British, the Germans, the French. They use all their technologies, and we know that the Germans have extensive technology, and they help the Ukrainians in putting together these drones. They've taken out a lot of naval assets. The major one, the main Moscow, that one was shot down by what they purport to be was blown up by a Ukrainian Neptune drone. That was a Neptune missile. That was the Moscow, the main ship of the Russians in the Black Sea. That one is under the Black Sea now. It's been shot long ago. The Russians lost quite a lot of ships in the Black Sea. The Ukrainians, despite this setback, we really don't know. I think they are now using a lot of artisanal systems in delivering their drones. Their capacity to produce drones have increased, the effectiveness of their drones have increased, and they are doing a lot of damage to the energy systems in Russia. They are hitting refineries and oil depots, and every day we have one other oil depot in one new city lighting up and filling up the sky with black smoke. That's what is going. The war is getting to being Ukraine is leaning heavily on its asymmetric tactics now. Russia, every day we see on Russian Telegram channels and on how they have caught one new collaborator who inadvertently, he doesn't even know. They used people a lot. The SBU of Ukraine is using a lot of people who don't even know that they're couriers for possibly things that will end up harming many people or many structures in the Russian state, but many of them are being caught. There's a big counter-espionage project going on now within Ukraine by the Russians. Russians have to step up a lot now because they know that the collective energies of the whole West has now started to slowly transition the war from one where they were helping the Ukrainians to shoot at the Russians to one where they are helping the Ukrainians to develop strategies of asymmetric warfare. They are now using the Ukrainians to develop drones, to undertake covert operation and operations within Russia to destroy a lot of Russian assets. We saw Operation Spider Web and how very effective that was. Although the Russians say it was just some damage, it wasn't as if they really destroyed as much as the Ukrainians said they did. But it was the intent of it and the possibility of it. Russia too also told us that they also carried out their own operation. They even specifically referenced Operation Spiderweb when they took out the Sapsan plant and all the associated plants that are part of the supply chain for developing the Sapsan factory. They took them all out in various locations all across Ukraine, and they said it was a special operation between the military and the FSB. They made us know, and they referenced the fact that it was akin to or much more significant than the success of Operation Spiderweb. We are entering a new phase of the war, and now we see that the cleavages are beginning to be very real. Russia has repaired the Druzhba pipeline that supplies Ukraine, Hungary, Slovakia, and most of the countries of the South Central and part of Europe. That pipeline will definitely be attacked again by the Ukrainians. It is going to be a situation of whack the mole for a long time now. Russia has their hands full. They may have to develop new strategies because obviously the drone manufacture is now exciting every single leader. The Norwegian Prime Minister was recently met with President Zelensky and was telling him that he came to bring money for him to develop that drone technology. It's so advanced now that even America wants to buy drones from Zelensky. Zelensky boasts a lot that there's a $50 billion deal that is signed with Trump to develop, to deliver drones to the US military. Drone warfare, drone acquisition is one of the big ticket parts of the big, beautiful bill that President Trump signed. $1 trillion military budget, and drone acquisition is one of them. Obviously, Ukraine is hoping to benefit from it. But this attack on the Bayraktar plant today may just have put a setback on it. Russia is hunting down every single location they can identify as part of the production of drones against their state. But like we say, now the whole technology is changing. People are printing, they're printing parts now. They're using they're printing parts they're assembling these drones in garages and outputting it. It's now a national effort. The drones are effective against Russia. They're irritating Russia, and they are tipping the scale somehow and keeping the Ukrainians in the fight. But that is not to say that the Ukrainians are doing well. They are losing. They are losing territories in Sumy. They are losing territory in Pokros. Pokros is almost gone. It's going. Slowly it's going. Konstantinovka is going. Sloviansk. These are the most fortified part of the Donbass, the most entrenched and fortified part of the Donbass. And once they fall, when those places fall in Donetsk, those cities fall in Donetsk, it's over. The whole Donbass will be in the hands of the Russians. And now we already know that the Russians have stepped into Dnipro, heading towards the capital city. They already are into that oblast, and who knows? They will soon collectively start thinking about moving across the west, the Dnipro River, and want to start heading towards Kyiv because people have said Nikolaev and Odessa may be the projects that Russia may be facing. So today, the British Council, the EU, and Turkey also got a bite of some Russian missiles. Russia has stepped up and said, friend or foe, we are going to go after you. This is where I end my video for today. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I expressed, please put them in the comment section. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe. Do well to like and share. Until I see you in my next video. Goodbye.